This podcast is dedicated to those who have found their way from fear to freedom and for those who are considering undertaking this amazing journey. This is the Courage to Be podcast, and I'm your host, Tanya Vasallo. Before we get into this episode, I want to share an amazing opportunity, my signature event, Increase Your Income and Impact, which is happening this November 7th through the 9th in Santa Fe, New Mexico. You will walk away from this 3-day in-person event shifting your mindset from not enough money to manifesting on the spot. You'll also learn how to get over your fears, own your worth, so that you can have a greater impact in the world. This event is life-transforming and already filling up. And don't take my word for it, just go to our site and listen to what participants are saying. I'm gifting you an 80% discounted ticket. All you have to do is leave me a rating and review on iTunes. Take a screenshot and email us at help.thecouragetobe@gmail.com and type event discount to claim your discounted ticket. You can also find that email in our show notes. I look forward to being your mentor and guide and transforming your life. See you in Santa Fe. Welcome back to the Courage to Be, where we have powerful conversations to transform your life and your business. And we are back with JJ Meier. Welcome back, JJ.
Thank you so much, Tanya. It's exciting to see you again.
I know. Our conversations, I just love seeing where it's going to take us, because where we left off on our last podcast, which I think it was podcast number 88, if you just happen to listen to this one and you haven't heard JJ's previous podcast, make sure to go listen to hers. Our first interview, which was all about redefining spirituality and physical wellness with her. But towards the end of our interview and our time together, JJ, you happened to share about a mushroom trip and a mushroom journey. And I was so curious about this that's why I wanted to do a second interview, because first, it's a taboo subject. Second, it's not like you were a person that's been doing mushrooms and LSD and smoking and hippie era, that's not you. So I just want to preface that to our listeners, oh, what kind of interview is this going to be? So I want you as a listener to come from that perspective of like, wow, this woman, JJ, had never tried any type of psychedelics or, hardcore drugs, so I want to go down this talk because I come from the same school as you, like the most that I'd ever done, was drink alcohol, like have some drinks with my friends in college. And then I tried a little bit of weed, but this seemed like way too much for me, But now everything has shifted, it's like we're starting to see that it is plant medicine. We're starting to see that this is not hardcore drugs, that there are some benefits of just trying plant medicine. I look at it as plant medicine. I'm trying to strip the stigma of it, of just like, oh, you're a drug addict now, because you did a mushroom journey. So let's rewind a little bit and take it from where we left off with the last podcast. Can you share with us, for anyone that hasn't listened to that last episode, how did this journey start for you and wanting to try, mushrooms? Because you're in your 70s, it's not like JJ's in her 20s and she's wanting to experiment with everything. So please take us there and take us down your journey with this.
I am happy to. And to your point, Tanya, you're absolutely right. I am a child of the 60s. I am of the psychedelic age, but never did anything. I never drank. I never smoked. I certainly didn't do drugs. I was involved in the theater world, and I was just too busy dancing and, having fun and seeing some of my friends go totally off the rails early on when all this started happening in the 60s. So I bypassed all of that, never did anything, still not a big drinker. And it was actually because of my son-in-law that this started. This was in March of this year, and how, because of a back injury, he has a lot of chronic pain, and he's tried many things, never wanted to do, painkiller type things. And it so helped him. And microdosing. So as with everything in our life, it's what intention do we set before we experience anything, whether it's a roller coaster ride or, a business meeting or whatever. What intention, what do we want to learn from any situation. And he always teased me because, I wouldn't have a beer with him or did get involved in that stuff. So as I was leaving from visiting them in Idaho, he gave me a little Ziploc bag and I took it home. And I went to our home in Northern California, and my spirit partner lives there, and a beautiful, spectacular property and gardens and all of this. And so I decided I was willing to risk doing this because I knew I was in such a safe space. And I was so curious and I was so excited to see, what was I going to learn? And a lot of people these days are happy to share their stories, but a lot of them are, oh, I did it in college. We partied all the time. Well, that wasn't my intention at all. This wasn't going to be a party. It was going to be a journey of self-discovery. And so that's, what started it. I just had this little Ziploc bag with some mushrooms. And the day came that, okay, this is the day that I'm going to try this and see where life takes me, before, during, and after. And it was about 11 o'clock in the morning. And, I said to my wonderful spirit guide and mentor that lives there on this beautiful property, and we call her KT. And she said, well, are you going to do this? And I went, sure. And so I just ate these mushrooms. I love mushrooms. They're like freeze-dried mushrooms. I did learn, and I've learned more since then, that the more blue is in the mushroom, the higher the percentage of psilocybin, which is the compound within the mushroom that creates the psychedelic effect or encounter. So I ate my mushrooms. I now know in hindsight it was 1.5 grams. And that's important to anybody who's thinking about this, to be with someone you feel safe with, that's going to be there, just holding space for you. And the amount that you take, of course, is important. I didn't know any different. I just took what was in the Ziploc bag, but now I know that it was 1.5 grams. And this was like 11 o'clock in the morning. And I went outside. That was my intention, to be out in nature. There's a spectacular 200-year-old black walnut tree on this property. And he's just so majestic and giant, and flowers everywhere around. And so I just laid on a lounge, and 30 minutes later hadn't felt a thing. Like, okay, well, I guess that wasn't going to work, and decided I was hungry. So I went back in the house and ate some leftover salmon. And that becomes an important part of this journey, this salmon, because as I was standing there just snacking, all of a sudden from the bottom, from the ground up, I felt like I was being, anchored into the earth. It was this amazing sensation. And I said to KT, I think I should probably go sit down. So I go back out and I lay down on this lounge, a wrought iron lounge, beautiful cushion. And I suddenly realized my body was just like dissolving into light particles. It was the most amazing feeling, because I thought I had conscious thoughts all the time. I never felt out of control, but I thought, oh, how I'm laying on a wrought iron lounge and I can't feel it. I could not feel anything. I was just, everything else disappeared other than my spirit, if you will, or my mind, because I could always think my own thoughts. But the first thought that came to me is, oh my gosh, I need to apologize to this salmon. I ate this fish. And I got very sad, like, oh my gosh, I ate this fish. And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I did this. And then, Tanya, the first really kind of mind-blowing thing is this beautiful glowing fish, this salmon, just swam up literally in front of my nose. And he said to me, and I'll never, ever forget this, he said, you don't need to apologize to me. I willingly gave you my life force, but you leave the best of us behind. You leave our brains that are libraries of information, our hearts that are full of love, and our bones that are full of strength. And it still makes me cry because the message was so clear. And then I knew I would never consume anything again, whether plant or fish or animal or what. I would never consume anything again without recognizing that I was taking in their life force, and be grateful for that. And then it became no concern to me, well, oh, is it organic or what's the quality or where was it grown? It's all life force. And if we take it in gratitude, it's going to be healthy for us. So I kind of got over the whole, oh, it has to be this and this and this kind of food, right? Any kind of food has life force, and taken in gratitude, it supports our health. So that was pretty amazing. And so I think his name was Sammy. I've always called him Sammy now, the salmon. And then he just swam away. He just left. And after telling me this wonderful, beautiful philosophy and this truth, he just swam away. And then I couldn't decide, should my eyes be open? Should my eyes be closed? But the first time I opened my eyes and could see this garden that I was lying in, it was just the most spectacular light show ever, and we hear so much about the matrix and all this sacred geometry. Everything was so perfectly aligned and, technicolor everything. And everywhere I looked at a flower or a plant or Walt, this beautiful walnut tree that we named Walt, that I could see the life force in that being. And Walt, again, is so gigantic and so old, and his trunk and all of his branches were just this glowing bronze color. And I'm thinking, this is what the world looks like all the time, but we just can't see. We can't see the energy fields. We can't see the forces, the vibration, the frequencies, right? It's all around us. And we know we live in a frequency-based world. And other creatures have the ability to see things differently than we do and hear things differently, hear frequencies that a human ear can't even decipher. And so that was spectacular, just, looking around me. And then I started to feel a little nauseous. And I thought, oh boy, did I take too much? Is this normal? And again, here comes Sammy, this beautiful glowing fish swimming right up to my face again. And Sammy said to me, you're not getting sick. You're not used to the frequency that you're on. And once your body adjusts a bit to the frequency, you won't feel this anymore. And as he swam away, the feeling of being nauseous went away with him. And then I felt fine from that point. But if I had to zero in on what the learning experience was, and do you have daughters, Tanya?
Yeah, I have one daughter.
Yeah, how old is she?
She's 11.
11. Okay. My daughter's going to turn 40 in a couple of months. And I have a lot of female friends that are, successful women. They built their own companies or they're attorneys or whatever. Any of us that have daughters seem to share one common thread, that as busy working mothers, lots of times our daughters don't feel that they're the centerpiece of our lives, especially if it's an only child. And my daughter, I just had one child. And I knew this, in some level of my consciousness, because I traveled all the time and I was busy. And when I was home, it was just a few days at a time. So I know that this has been an emotional disconnect between her and I for many, many years. So as she came into my consciousness during this amazing journey, the first amazing thing that happened is I got to give birth to her again. Now, not from the labor pains and the hospital and all that perspective at all. Just as I birthed her, she was this glowing, luminescent orb of light, just this beautiful orb of light. And then the thoughts came to me like, oh my God, all babies are born in light, right? All babies are born still connected to source, still connected to whatever we choose to call it, God, spirit, whatever. And she was just this beautiful ball of light. And as she floated further away from my body and became into her own body, she was still this beautiful glowing body. As we're all born this way, I've always believed this to some extent, but now I got to see it and experience rebirthing her. And then the sadness came. Then it was things I hadn't faced in a long time. And I felt how she felt as a little girl. You know, every time I left home and every time I came back and every time I was too busy and every time I missed a gymnastics meet. And she had a spectacular father. He's now passed, but they had a very close relationship because she was with him way more as a primary parent. So I got to see all this and feel all this from her perspective, not from mine as the working mom, but from hers as that little girl. And then Sammy said to me, but this is what made her the incredible woman that she is right now. This is what made her such a great mother, because she has 4 children, 2 dogs, and 15 chickens right now. And she is totally present for her children. So she made an entirely different choice than I did. I was already had a career by the time that I had her. I was already in my mid-30s almost. So she made a totally different choice to be present for her children. But now, as they're growing up, now she's following an entrepreneurial path of her own. And so now I could just experience all this glorious pride in her, because even though I carried all this guilt because I just wasn't there enough, that she is totally enough and she is totally present for her children and the choices that she made. So that was the most incredible learning experience, allowed me to shed a lot of guilt that I've carried for 40 years. And so from that therapeutic perspective, and you were absolutely right, this is plant-based medicine, as all of our food is medicine in some way, shape, or form. But the therapeutic value, and I'm sure you're aware, Tanya, there's a massive amount of university studies going on, major hospital studies, the effect of a psilocybin on especially addiction patients, depression patients, cancer patients, because it alters the frequency of their thought to think of their condition in a very different way. And sometimes with miraculous healing effects just based on one treatment, or in my case, one journey. I had really some miraculous healing benefits because of that.
This
Go
is
ahead.
amazing, JJ. I have so many questions. I've just been like writing down all
Go
these
ahead.
questions because I love all of the stories going on here. I want to take a quick pause before we dive deeper into these stories. So let's take a quick moment and we'll be right back. I want to share an amazing opportunity with you, my signature event, Increase Your Income and Impact, which is happening this November 7th through the 9th in person in Santa Fe, New Mexico. You will walk away from these 3 days shifting your mindset from not enough money to manifesting on the spot. You'll also learn how to get over your fears and unworthiness so that you can have a greater impact on the world. These in-person events are life transforming. Just listen to what one of our participants has to say.
Hi, I'm Debbie Tisler. I am so glad that I attended this 3-day event in Santa Fe. I have met wonderful, amazing, intelligent people from so many different businesses who have been collaborative in sharing ideas and sharing perspectives. Tanya has shared so much information on our relationship personally with money and how it impacts the results that we get in all areas of our lives. And I just fully encourage anyone who has the opportunity to come to one of her events to just give yourself the gift of that opportunity to experience Tanya and her magic and just be open to possibilities and what could happen.
If you found this inspiring, if you'd like to join us in Santa Fe, New Mexico this November, I'm gifting you an 80% discounted ticket. All you have to do is leave me a rating and a review on iTunes. Take a screenshot and email us at help.thecouragetobe@gmail.com and type in event discount to claim your discounted ticket. You can find that email in our show notes as well as the website to our event. I look forward to being your mentor and guide to transform your life. See you in Santa Fe. This story is so fascinating. There are so many learning points within it. Let me ask you first, did you go in with an intention? Because you did talk about intention. Like you said at the beginning, if we do everything in life with intention, we have different outcomes. What was your intention going into this?
My intention was just to be open to whatever message or learning that I would experience, and that I was not going into it with any amount of fear. Because fear, is contractive, and fear can take us to a whole different space. And that's not saying, there were great moments of clarity and joy and laughter. I laughed a lot, and other moments where I just cried and cried and cried and cried. And that in itself is a cleansing effect. And sometimes nowadays, I don't have time to feel that. I don't want to cry. I don't look pretty when I cry. Whatever we tell ourselves, we just don't allow ourselves that kind of cleansing release. And tears are just that. And whether they're
Yeah.
tears of joy, it is a cleansing, or tears of grief. So there were lots of tears.
But thank you for sharing that and bringing that point up. There is another podcast. I did the interview yesterday, so I'm not quite sure when it'll release. It might release. It might already be released before this one releases, which is with Tracy Litt. And she was talking about how we suppress our emotions. We're always so busy, busy, busy doing, 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 because if we stop and we let those emotions come up and let those tears come out, it's like, no, I don't want to feel that. So let me keep on getting busy and do other things so it sounds like by you doing this and having that intention of being open, and not going into it with fear, it allowed for the laughter, but it also allowed for the healing, for those tears to come out, to allow yourself to feel, that guilt, of being the mom that wasn't there all the time. And thank you for sharing that story, because I could relate to it so much. It's like, as a busy mom trying to run up my business, there's moments that I'm like, oh, should I be at home, taking care of her single child too, like I just could relate to so many things with it. And I'm convinced that many of the listeners can relate to this too, whether they have one or more kids. So that is just from you choosing to have this journey, to be open, to experiment with it. What a gift that you've given not only yourself, but sharing with the rest of the world, and the impact that this is having, of like, oh my God, maybe I should do a journey and see if something shows up for me with my own daughter, and, like a healing process within that, or releasing, kinks that might be in there. So thank you for that, JJ. I just appreciate your willingness to be open, to be able to share about these taboo subjects, so that it gives permission to other people to say, you know what, I might want to try this. There's a wonderful series of Michael Pollan on Netflix. I think I might have brought it up before. It's called How to Change Your Mind. And it's a short mini series. I think there's like 4 episodes. Have you watched this
No,
one,
I have
JJ?
not. I'm going to write that down.
Oh my God, it is fabulous. You'll hear, Michael Pollan's been a journalist in the health and wellness arena, and he decides to embark and try the same thing, kind of like yourself, that hasn't done these drugs, wasn't part of it, and again, I don't want to call them drugs. I want to take the stigma off of that. And I just want to call them, it's healing medicine. It's like you would use lavender to heal, or put, calming effects on you, or valerian root. I mean, just think about how we use food as healing properties. And so to me, seeing mushrooms, cannabis, there's actually another episode that I did. I think it's number 25 with Ashley, and she talks about cannabis and how that changed everything for her too. Another plant medicine, which we all hold, like the stigma, like you shouldn't be doing this, you're going to be addictive, you're going to be. And I have stories of just, within family and people that have tried it at an older age that have never done anything else, and how healing that's been for them too. But Michael Pollan decides to experiment with each one of these different psychedelics. Like, he tries mushrooms, and he also interviews different people that have tried it, people that have been diagnosed with a life-threatening illness, people that are going to lose a loved one, like, how do I, interact with this? How do I take that in? I'm going to lose my spouse, from cancer or something like that. and them going on a mushroom journey and what that's done to them. So he does, I think, mushrooms, mescaline, what's the MDMA? It's the other one, the ecstasy. I think that MDMA is the same thing. Like, I don't know all the terms, but and just the amazing things that's done for people, from veterans treating PTSD, and just like you're saying, one experience, two experience with some of them, and they've all been supervised. It's not like you're saying like, oh yeah, let's go recreational and let's all go do mushrooms and go crazy. Did the person KT that was there with you, did she do the mushrooms with you, or was she just holding space for you?
Well, yes, she did. Her experience was very different. And because she was in the mindset, oh my gosh, I have this dear person in my life who's never done anything like this. I was like this virgin territory, if you will. She was more focused on being there for me and checking on me and all of that. So her experience was very different. She took the same amount, but maybe, it affected our bodies in a very different way. So she will choose to do it again. So then I can hold that space for her without her having to be concerned with what was happening with me. And she would come in and out of the house, out to the garden where I was. And then because I heard her, I opened my eyes. And this is a property that she's lived on and cared for about 35 years. And suddenly, as I saw her walking through the garden, there was like filaments of light trailing behind her, and every plant she walked by moved with her. And then my conscious thought was, oh, she is so connected to this earth and this ground, and every plant is used to her loving hands on it, around it, caring for it, trimming it, that she is just one with that land. And I said to her, oh, I can see the plants moving. And then she said, oh, well, what does this look like? And she walked up to this giant walnut tree and she put her hands up on the trunk of the tree. And I literally saw her arms disappear inside of him. And where her arms were, inside of Walt's trunk, new leaves just burst out around her. And these leaves were just moving like this little happy dance, like they were so happy to have her embrace. And we hug that tree all the time. He's just so spectacular. We sit against the tree, but I just watched her arms go right into him. And I don't know how long she stood there. I have no idea. But when she stepped away and withdrew her embrace, then all these leaves just retracted back into his trunk. And it was, you just keep going, oh my God, there's no other phrase that you can come up with. There just are no words to the patterns and the colors. And I thought about, we do live in a holographic environment. We just can't see it all in our human state as we are right now. And then I came across, KT actually gave me a new book to read called The Sophia Code. I don't know if you're familiar with this yet. And for those of us that have studied this type of spirituality and material for 50 years, this has been 50 years of my life, rarely do I come across something that really kind of blows my mind. But this book does, the Sophia Code. And there's a word that the author created, because we hear the word matrix all the time. And we understand, most of us understand, we are creative beings. Our thoughts create our reality. So she made a word called creatrix, which just really resonated with me, especially after this experience, because yes, we are creating within the matrix, within this holographic universe. And she takes it even further in terms of, it's not just, we hear so much about past lives. Have we lived before? Are we going to live again? And there's lots of even quantum physics, quantum mechanics now that are looking at parallel, what is going on in our parallel life Maybe it wasn't 100 years ago. Maybe it's right now. It's just next to us in a different reality, you see? And that's again what this journey feels like. You're just all things in all places. And because you have no need of your physical body, that just doesn't exist for a while. So again, for people that are in chronic pain, even a short time of relief of that, where their body just disappears and they don't have to deal with that, can be life-changing as well. And my experience from start to finish, when I felt I was like back in my body, was about 3 hours. And again, other people that I've talked to, it's been very different. Every experience has some similarities, but very, very different, because we all come to it with different experience and thoughts and beliefs and expectations and all of that. But I never had one part of the experience that I would say, oh, that was scary, or, oh, I wouldn't want to go there again. That didn't happen for me at all. It was just, even though there are parts of it that were so emotional, I even remembered talking about stuffing down emotions like you were, Tanya, and emotions around our children or our relationships. And I remember Jessica was 6 years old and I was home, and she knew that if she walked up to the threshold of my office door and I was on the phone, that she was not supposed to cross that threshold. Anyway, so she walked up to the threshold one day. She saw me on the phone. I just put my hand up, like, just, wait a minute. I got off the phone and she says, Mommy, were you talking to a client? And I went, yes, honey, I was talking to a client. And she said, when do I get to be the client? Ah, and that, so I hadn't thought about that for years because it's a really painful memory for me, and it still is. But now I understand it in a different way. Or one time when she was older, she said, oh, I just taught myself to miss you. I knew you were gone every week. Well, I don't know that a child can teach themselves not to miss their parent. What they teach themselves is distance, to pull away because they're trying to avoid that pain of
The
separation
pain.
too, right? So that came back to me.
Did you get to talk to your daughter about this experience afterwards?
Well,
Like everything that showed up for you and her rebirth, or you're birthing her again, and
not,
that
not
sense of guilt disappearing?
Not in depth yet. I had certainly intended to, because I went to visit them since this time. But when I'm there and we've got 4 little ones around and all the activity, we can't carve out that kind of alone time. It's kind of difficult. And by the time, her day is at an end, she's ready for her day to end. So she knows I'm doing the podcast. So I'm thinking, well, if she can carve out this time for herself whenever she wants to, then she will hear the full story. She's heard some pieces of it. And when I said to her just this week, oh, I've got the podcast coming up with Tanya, and she laughed and she goes, oh my God, I can't wait to hear this story. So she's probably thinking there's going to be a lot more humor in it than maybe there really was. But I'm anxious for her to hear it all because she's only
And is there something you would like to say to her? Since she can hear it now. I mean, I think it would be wonderful down the line when she can carve the time. I know how it is with little ones running around, and it might not be the time. It might be in a year, it might be in a couple years. But how amazing would it be to do a journey together, where both of you, as mother and daughter, can release and heal those parts and that consciousness.
Boy, thank you for that suggestion. I would just really value and honor that opportunity. So yeah, how wonderful would that be? As long as we have a babysitter at the time.
Is there anything that you would like to say to her, like as you're reflecting on what happened? I mean, it sounds like you were able to overcome a little bit that sense of guilt. I always try and remind ourselves that we do the best we can with the knowledge and the tools that we had at that time. So my guess is that your daughter will be able to see that, our parents aren't perfect, and especially for herself being a mom. It's like once you become a mother, I look at my parents. My parents aren't perfect, and there's things that I would have done differently, in my upbringing. But that's also the beauty of who it's made me become. Like was it the salmon that told you that? Like Sammy
Yeah,
the salmon?
Yes, yes. Everything that she experienced has made her the, the magnificent woman and human being and mother that she is.
It's
You
true.
know, and she has expressed to me on many occasions. She would say things like, Mom, I'm so grateful you and Dad raised me to be such an independent thinker, to be so self-sufficient, to have, examine all my choices. You never told me what to think. You helped me learn how to think for myself. Well, that's a huge gift because we did very intentionally raise her in that way. So while I'm sure sometimes she felt alone because she was an only child, or, she felt mom wasn't around or not paying attention enough, you know, I don't feel so much the need anymore to just say, oh, I'm so sorry. Because now I know it all made her who she is today. So I hope she gets a deeper understanding through this process, and love your idea of she and I doing that together.
Oh
Uh,
my God, I would love to do because I've only had one journey with mushrooms too. And I did at one point feel like this connection, this oneness with everything and merging. I almost even had like an out of body experience where I was dying, like I was leaving the body and me, Mrs. Control Freak, and making sure everyone's taken care of. I was just like, it's all okay. And this is wonderful. And we're all one. And so at one point I connected with like my father's energy. And that's where my healing, I guess, must be in. And just like the oneness with him and the love for him and with him. And as I came out afterwards, my parents have never been, even though they're in your age range and they could have been in the hippie era and tried all these drugs, they never did. The most they've ever done is just drink some wine or whatever, like that's not. And I always thought to myself, I'm like, how wonderful would this be to do a journey like this, especially as you're getting older, like, I don't know the sense of death, approaching you, because you're in your 70s, you're maybe getting into your 80s. It's like, what is that relationship? I always have that curiosity of like, what will I be thinking, when I'm in that decade? You have different thoughts. I just turned 50 this year. So it's kind of like, okay, that's a different perspective towards life. But what will be my thoughts when I'm in my 70s and having these conversations? But I would love to do a journey with my parents and for them to just experience something like this altered consciousness, to understand these other dimensions, like you're saying. I mean, we've just never had the opportunity. It's almost like you get this window of opportunity to see, feel, and to life beyond our perception as humans, and so maybe that's something we'll both do. You'll do it with your daughter, and I can get my parents to have a journey together and do it together.
if I had to come up with one word, because I've been asked this, if you had one word to describe this, and you think, how could I come up with one word? But I finally did. It just kind of floated into my head, and that is expansiveness. It just expands everything, your sight, your vision, your emotions, everything. And as a result, my emotions are much closer to the surface. It's okay to cry over I cried listening to political speeches the last few nights, but, those were tears of hope and joy and wonderment and the resilience of the human spirit. And yes, we can accomplish anything. The only thing that stops us is if we go, oh, I can't do that. That's it. Then the train stops. But the minute we go, am I curious enough to try it? Am I curious enough to explore a different philosophy or thoughts or whatever? As soon as curiosity becomes sort of your vehicle, everything starts to expand. So if I had to have one word, it would be it just expanded everything about me. And now I can carry that forward. And whether or not I share the story, I know that I am more expansive in all directions and that we are these timeless, wonderful, frequency-based, electrical charged creatures.
This is fabulous. And thank you for sharing about that particular word. I never really thought of it. I'll have to ponder on that one too, JJ. We're going to take another quick pause and be right back. I want to share an amazing opportunity with you, my signature event, Increase Your Income and Impact, which is happening this November 7th through the 9th in person in Santa Fe, New Mexico. You will walk away from these 3 days shifting your mindset from not enough money to manifesting on the spot. You'll also learn how to get over your fears and unworthiness so that you can have a greater impact on the world. These in-person events are life transforming. Just listen to what one of our participants has to say.
Hi, my name is Kelly Nixon. I came to Tanya's retreat because I wanted to learn more about myself, money, and my relationship with money. I didn't really know what to expect, to be honest, and I'm so glad I came. I'm so glad I stepped out of my comfort zone and met new people and have bigger ideas because I feel more confident now going forward. I highly recommend her. She's got incredible energy. She's loving. She's funny. She will fill you up.
If you found this inspiring, if you'd like to join us in Santa Fe, New Mexico this November, I'm gifting you an 80% discounted ticket. All you have to do is leave me a rating and a review on iTunes, take a screenshot, and email us at help.thecouragetobe@gmail.com and type in event discount to claim your discounted ticket. You can find that email in our show notes as well as the website to our event. I look forward to being your mentor and guide to transform your life. See you in Santa Fe. Let me ask you, with all of this is such a fabulous episode. I'm enjoying so much of it. What about your connection? Because your son-in-law, you said, is the one that kind of got you into this and all that, and that he was microdosing for pain. How has your connection with him, how has it helped him with microdosing?
Again, and I haven't really ever have a sit-down conversation with him about it, but I know that it calms him. He's not as agitated or on edge. He's more patient, he says, because he's not kind of locked up with this pain that he kind of lives with. He was actually on his way. He wanted a military career and he was on his way for a football scholarship. And as a result of the football, he broke his back. And so that ended his football career. It prevented him from having a military career. So not only did he have the physical pain to deal with, he had the psychic pain of, oh my God, I thought I had my life planned out here and suddenly now I don't. And so at the time that he and my daughter came together, he wasn't in really a very healthy space. And she had an amazing effect on him. And he grew up in a big family. He's one of 8 children. So he wanted to have a family. And now they have 4, kind of 4 by accident, because there's a set of twins in there.
Oh my God.
So that was a double delivery, a double surprise when she had the twins. And then because there's 3 boys, they wanted to try one more time to get a girl, and thankfully they got their baby girl. That's their family tribe, and now they're adding, animals and chicken and fresh eggs and things like that, which again is so out of the realm of how I grew up and had planned my life only to have a career. And she was unexpected, but there was never a question in my mind when I learned that, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. And I had this amazing textbook, wonderful pregnancy, worked all the way. My husband, I used to tease him that he was more pregnant than I was because he was so supportive and yet in some ways did she feel unwanted because she had heard me say to people, oh, I never planned to have any kids. Because I didn't. But then here she was. I mean, what a gift was that? And never any question in my mind, oh, I have a career, so I'm not going to have this pregnancy. Never crossed my mind to make that kind of choice. I absolutely believe women should have a choice. And I always thought when I was in my 20s and my career was really ramping up, like, oh my gosh, if I ever got pregnant, of course I would choose not to have a child. And then in my mid 30s, when I did get pregnant, it was like, well, of course I'm going to have this. She chose me as the mothership, right?
Yeah.
She's here for a reason. And we did know we were having a little girl, and that made her even more special. And then here she was. And like all first-time parents, and maybe you had the same thought, Tanya, we thought, oh, we're just going to have this beautiful little creature and she's going to fit into our life. Well, of course she did, but you know how they take over your schedule and your time and, your sleep and all the things that a first-time parent goes, whoa, I just thought I was going to have a cute little baby to hold.
That's
It's
a whole other conversation and a whole other episode.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And let me ask you, has the experience still stayed with you? You know, like you recounted all the stories. Obviously, Sam the salmon has become an icon. I think you should have a little cartoon drawn up or a logo or have a little statue or carry it as a necklace because he had so many profound teachings and
Yeah,
lessons
yeah,
for you that you're now sharing with all of us. So
yeah,
Sam the salmon is teaching all of us. And before I even go further with this, I just want to say thank you to your son-in-law, you know,
yeah,
because
yeah.
with his injury, his back injury, that all of this that you're saying, like, oh my God, my career has changed, my life has changed. It's not the way I wanted it or I intended it. What a great example of connecting the dots, like Steve Jobs said in his famous commencement speech, right? In Stanford, you can't connect the dots moving forward. You can only connect them looking backwards.
Yeah.
And now looking backwards, look at the impact if he wouldn't have had that injury, if he wouldn't have been in pain and maybe tried microdosing and then encouraging his mother-in-law, like, no, you should try these things, you know, maybe something will change. Look at the impact and the ripple effect. And now it's being talked about on a podcast. I mean, little did he know that accident, that moment in time, I mean, talk about matrix and things happening. So I just want to say thank you to him, even though we don't know him personally. I don't know him personally. But yeah, has the experience stayed with you, JJ? Like, do you remind yourself on a daily basis, or how does it show up for you?
Well, it has altered me for one. So I am different, on a daily basis. Yes, I think about Sammy often. I've always loved salmon. It's my favorite fish, to eat. And I probably have salmon, 3 times a week. But I look at it differently and I handle it differently and I feel it differently. And I'm gratitude. Thank you for this life force. Thank you for this life force. But yeah, I never thought about it. I should have I'll get a tattoo. That's another thing my kids, and every time I go visit them, I go, okay, I'm going to go get a tattoo this time. And then I never get around to it. But yeah, I should get a Sammy tattoo. Thanks for that idea. That would be very fun. But it is with me all the time. And the weird thing, Tanya, of course, I've been a lifelong journaler. I have boxes full of journals. So I thought I have to write this story before I forget anything. So for some reason, instead of writing it by hand in my journal, I typed it up because I didn't want to forget anything. And that document has disappeared. I have run a search in every file, everything on my laptop, and I cannot find this document where I wrote the story. And then instead of being aggravated or thinking, oh, I have to write it down again, I don't. It is with me all the time. I can recount it. I've probably shared it with maybe a dozen people. First time I've ever shared it in this kind of public space. And the other thing, it made me realize even more, and I have a t-shirt. I've never worn t-shirts that had sayings on them or logos or all that. I almost wore it today though, because it's so funny. I was at the farmer's market and here's a t-shirt stand and I bought this shirt. And it's now become like my mantra. The shirt says, I am under no obligation to make sense to you.
I love that
It's
quote.
so funny, isn't it? And I feel that way even more. I don't care how people judge this or judge any part of my life. And, I have a blessed, remarkable, fun life. And I feel bad if other people don't have that. But I'm under no obligation to make sense to anybody. They take it for what it's worth. And it serves me in my work. I work in behavioral science as it relates to leadership development. And all of these experiences have just helped me be more expressive, I hope, and to help other people see themselves in an expanded way.
This is so fabulous. And I just, again, once again, JJ, from our previous episode, from this one, I love your openness, your curiosity, and I appreciate you sharing about these taboo subjects, so that we can start demystifying it and seeing the benefits and how this can help everyone, and it's by no means I'm saying here, like, everyone go out, journey, go do drugs and, recreational stuff. It's, you have to tune in with yourself. You have to see if you're in alignment. If you are under, medication of some sort, tune in, talk to your doctor, like, I don't want to take responsibility with any of that, but know that if you're curious, if you're wanting to explore new things, like yourself, the first time I've done this has been in my late 40s, so it's like, it's part of life, of just like being curious, wanting to have experiences. And why not say, yeah, I tried that and this has been life changing. So thank you again. What's one thing that you would say to our listeners that they could do to live a life with more courage?
Well, release fear for sure, because, science proves that 80% of what we fear or are worried about never happens anyway. So why expend that kind of energy when we only have right now, this moment? And my favorite phrase to anybody, including you, is
Thank
I
you.
love you today. I love you today. I love you in this moment. It's all I can offer you is this moment that we're together. And I think that helps people. I hope it helps people to release fear, to just say, this is who I am in this moment. This is the love I have to offer, the support, the whatever. And just to be able to say to everybody in your life, including yourself, the most important one, when you look in that mirror and say, I love you today.
Oh, you are a gem, JJ. I just adore you. Thank you so much for your time with us today. Thank you for sharing about your experience. And I know we'll do future episodes once again. So thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Tanya.
If you like this episode and you'd like to feel this kind of energy live and in person, I want to share with you about my upcoming event, Increase Your Income and Impact, which is happening November 7th through the 9th in person in Santa Fe, New Mexico. You will walk away from these 3 days shifting your mindset from not enough money to manifesting on the spot. You'll also learn how to get over your fears and unworthiness so that you can have a greater impact in the world. I'll gift you an 80% discounted ticket. All you have to do is leave me a rating and review on iTunes, take a screenshot, and email us at help.thecouragetobe@gmail.com. and type in event discount to claim your discounted ticket. I look forward to being your mentor and guide to transform your life. See you in Santa Fe.